Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the news on DBS TV. The city of Douala is currently on heat with the African Nations Championship Chan ambience characterized by noise, celebrations and plenty of enthusiasm from football fans. Another thing that marks this football season in Douala is intensified traffic congestion in the city, especially as to and after matches and usually in and around the neighborhood with stadia hosting the games. This renders circulation within this period difficult or even impossible, as people can remain at the spot for hours. The congestion is known to be caused by blocked roads by forces of law and order in order to secure and reserve the area for competing teams. This may appear understandable for some because the safety of players, both local and foreign, is a priority. But to others, it is an exaggeration on the part of the forces of law and order. They judge it unacceptable to condemn the entire population and disturb them from carrying out their activities because of a few persons. Like this Douala city dweller, they think the safety and comfort of the football teams can be maintained without blocking road movement for everyone else. Whatever the case, the city of Douala is well known for intense traffic congestions on most days and worst of all during festive periods and during events of public interest. Cameroon and Mali were the first countries to ensure victory in the 2021 Continental Football Tournament upon the start on Saturday, January 16, and both African countries are to meet in their next matches tomorrow, Wednesday, at the Yaoundé Amadou Ahidjo Stadium at 5 p.m. Few hours to the encounter, fans of both sides are trying to predict the outcome, all in favor of their nation. Our reporters went down the streets of Douala today and talked to some Malian nationals living in Cameroon, all of whom impatiently await the game with hopes of seeing the Eagles of Mali carry the victory against the indomitable Lions of Cameroon. To some, their victory would be well-deserved and a sort of revenge for the defeat the Lions inflicted on them in their 1972 match in Cameroon and in 2002 in Mali. These people say they hope to not only win Cameroon but the tournament as well, and then return for AFCON 2022 for another victory. Another group of Malian nationals say they are divided between both sides, as Cameroon has become home to them, but Mali still remains their motherland. Many Cameroonians in Douala as well foresee victory for the indomitable Lions, especially for the advantage of being at home in a well-mastered environment, plus the strong fan base. Others remain more or less pessimistic, assuming that their first victory was just luck. Whatever the case, the fate of the encounter would only be decided on the football pitch, where the best would emerge victorious at the end. Now talking politics, the oath-taking ceremony officially installing pioneer president of regional assemblies across Cameroon is underway. Recently, it was the case of the Far North Regional President Daniel Kalbasu to take office, an office in which he will be expected to discharge duties in the following areas.
Has as a role to supervise the economic policies of the region, development policies of the region, even the democratization of the region is all falling on his shoulders as from today. If you take the law on decentralization, you will find all the specifications about what he's supposed to be doing under the supervision of the governor therein.
All these following under the supervision of the regional governor, an assignment which the new president is aware of already.
I know each corner. I know the problem of each even village. My problem is everything in order to develop. Not only our capital, Marwa, but the whole region, each area.
Sitting in to watch him receive his oath and commission him to office was the president of the Far North Court of Appeal, Barrister Njor Mathias, administrative authorities and traditional rulers. From the Far North, a similar exercise took place in the East Regional Capital, Betua, last January 15, 2021, where Waman Bele solemnly took his oath of office as the pioneer president of the East Regional Assembly. With his right arm raised, he pronounced the oath through which he will discharge his duty, a duty he feels accomplished carrying out.
I feel committed. I've committed myself to fulfill all my mission with certain respect of the law, certain respect of all the rules and principles of the democracy.
Already in office, the new president is beginning with a number of priorities.
I do have priorities, some of which are, first of all, we need to settle the institution. This is a new institution. We need to have office, we need to have administrative collaborators. Then we'll have to define a strategy for the development of the region. Those are some of the priorities that we have.
In collaboration with his executive and all the regional councillors, their main focus is to ensure the development of their region. The Constitutional Court of the Central African Republic has validated the re-election of President Faustin Archange Touadéra in last month's election. Touadéra is proclaimed to be the re-elected president in the first round of the December 27, 2020 elections, Chief Judge Daniel Darlan pronounced, validating results that gave him 53.16% of the vote. Faustin Archange Touadéra's victory grants him another 5-year term. He was elected for the first time in 2016. The country's constitutional court, by so doing, has rejected a lawsuit filed by 13 of the 16 other candidates who argued the results were an outcome of massive fraud. The court put the turnout at just 35.25%, a figure affected by the inability of many voters to cast their ballots. The elections in the Central African Republic, a landlocked country in the Central Africa, took place amid high tensions as armed groups roamed the streets of the capital, Bangui. Former President François Bozizé, who returned from exile, was accused of supporting a rebellion and organizing a coup. Tunisian authorities have arrested more than 600 people after a fourth consecutive night of riots in several cities throughout the country. According to Defense Ministry spokesman Mohamed Zikri, the army has deployed troops in several areas, including Bizet in the north, Sousse in the east, and Kasserine and Siliana in central Tunisia. While protests continue, President Kais Saied, who met with residents in a Toudamene city Monday, has urged protesters to desist from vandalizing private and public property. In his words, he said, "Through you, I want to speak to all the Tunisian people. I know the state of poverty, and I also know who is exploiting your poverty. Don't let anyone exploit your misery. Don't attack private or public property. We live today because of moral values and not because of theft or looting." Riots erupted after the Tunisian government imposed a nationwide lockdown on Thursday, the same day that marked the 10th anniversary of dictator Zine El Abidine Ben Ali's fall from power during the Arab Spring to curb a surge in coronavirus infections. However, with no clear agenda, political leadership, or backing from the major parties, it is not clear whether the administrations would gain momentum or die down, as many previous rounds of protest have since 2011. Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera has introduced new lockdown measures to contain a jump in confirmed cases and deaths from COVID-19. The restrictions include school closures, a nighttime curfew, and no gatherings of over 50 people. The measures come 5 days after Chakwera declared a state of national disaster in response to the recent spike in COVID-19 cases. Malawi said it would shut schools for at least 3 weeks, except for students currently doing Certificate of Education examinations, and all bars would be closed at 8 p.m. No one is expected to be in the streets between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. The new measures, he added, are being enacted because of the situation. It is getting worse in the second wave of the pandemic. Malawi reported over 12,000 cases and some 300 deaths since the pandemic started last year. The president said the government was allocating a further $2 million to provide healthcare staff and equipment. The U.S. military commander in Africa, AFRICOM, has confirmed the departure of American soldiers on Somalia soil. Washington had around 700 troops stationed in the country at all times, but President Donald Trump had ordered their withdrawal in mid-December. According to reports, the soldiers left 2 days before the D-Day. AFRICOM has also said there remains a very limited presence of U.S. troops in Somalia. It is been stipulated that the troops have been relocated to the Camp Simba in southeastern Kenya and others in Camp Lemonnier, the U.S. base in Djibouti. Meantime, the White House has promised to continue the fight against Al-Shabaab group. The intensity of drone strikes still remains very high. Last week, one of them killed an Islamist insurgent. On Sunday, terrorists attacked a Somali army convoy escorting a governor and officers 50 kilometers from Mogadishu. Many experts have criticized the U.S. withdrawal from Somalia, especially at a point in time when attacks are resurfacing. Political tensions are equally high, with less than a month before the elections, and the terrorist group could take advantage of the vacuum left by Washington. Out of Africa, a Russian judge on Monday ordered opposition leader Alexei Navalny to be jailed for 30 days after the leading Kremlin critic returned to Russia from Germany, where he was recovering from nerve agent poisoning that he blames on Russian President Vladimir Putin's government. The ruling followed a hastily set-up court hearing at a police vicinity where Navalny was being held since his arrest at a Moscow airport on Sunday evening, which sparked sharp reactions both at home and around the world. Following Monday's hearing, Navalny called on people to protest against the ruling and Russia's authorities. In a video clip posted on YouTube, Navalny said, "Don't be afraid. Take to the streets. Don't go out for me, go out for yourselves and your future." Several EU countries, including the President of the EU Council, Charles Michel, called on Russians to immediately release Navalny. He will now remain in prison until at least February 15, with a different court set to decide whether to convert his suspended 3.5-year sentence into real jail time. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has won a crucial confidence vote in Parliament's lower house, staying in power. Conte sought the confidence vote after former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi, now a senator who leads the Italia Viva party, pulled out of the ruling majority last week, sparking a government crisis. Conte's government won the lower house vote by 321 to 259. Had he lost the vote, Conte would have been forced to resign. The margin was wider than expected and gave the government an absolute majority in the 629-seat chamber. Conte faces a tougher test on Tuesday in the upper house Senate, where the government had only a slim majority even when Italia Viva was still part of the coalition. He insists his coalition, formed in September 2019 and comprising mainly of the center-left Democratic Party and populist Five Star Movement, could carry on without Renzi. Renzi has long criticized Conte's handling of the pandemic, from the months-long closure of high schools to support the small businesses threatened with closure. He told Parliament his government had acted with the utmost care, taking decisive action where needed. New measures were introduced on Sunday, with shops and restaurants shut and residents urged to stay at home in a number of regions. Kamala Harris would make history tomorrow, Wednesday, when she becomes America's first female vice president, the first black woman, and the first woman of South Asian descent to hold that office. The 56-year-old Democrat, a rising star in her party, has succeeded where two others failed before her in 1984 and in 2008. Harris was the first woman of color to be on a major party's presidential ticket and would be the first woman of color to hold the country's second highest office. The daughter of an Indian biologist mother and Jamaican economist father, Harris, a prosecutor, became the first person of color to be elected District Attorney of San Francisco in 2003. Becoming vice president potentially puts her in the frame for the top job itself and as a leading contender to be the Democratic Party's nominee in the 2024 presidential election. In preparation to take office, Kamala Harris has resigned her seat in the United States Senate. "Serving you as senator has been an honor," Harris wrote an open letter to Californians on Monday. Joe Biden also prepares to take office on Wednesday, January 20, as America's new president, making him the nation's oldest president at the age of 78, following his inauguration tomorrow. Biden has vowed to rescue democratic institutions from partisan dysfunction. He has pledged to be the president for all Americans, a population that includes Americans who voted for Joe Biden and those who voted Donald Trump. An independent COVID-19 investigation panel has slammed China and the World Health Organization for early shortcomings in the initial response to the coronavirus pandemic. In a report released on January 18, the panel called for an overhaul of global health alert and response systems, saying the current system is not fit for purpose. They say China and the WHO could have acted quicker and more forcefully to contain the start of the COVID-19 outbreak. The first cases in Wuhan occurred between December 12 and December 29, 2029, according to city authorities. The cases weren't reported to WHO until December 31. By the time Wuhan went under lockdown, the virus had already spread to Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and the United States. The report also criticized the WHO for dragging its feet at the start of the crisis, pointing out that the UN Health Agency did not convene its emergency committee until January 22, 2020, and that committee failed to declare the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern, its highest alert level, until a week later. The Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response, established by the WHO in May 2020, is co-chaired by former New Zealand Prime Minister Helen Clark and former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who said they would look further into the coherence of the health response. We have come to the end of the news for today. Thanks for staying with us. See you tomorrow. Good night.